I am 32 years old. I have been married for 4 years to Ava, who is 31 years old. She works in the advertising industry, and I work as an executive in MC. I met Ava on a dating app, and after a couple years of a temporary relationship, we finally decided to get married. We both love and respect each other, but I think we are more a mature couple who respect each other's boundaries and don't go in circles. Ava is a creative ad developer, so she has a weird and unorganized work schedule. So far, I've been cooperative as I have been for the past 4 years, until I started feeling suspicious of her behavior. I tried to have a frank talk with her, but she brushed me off, saying I'm just thinking too much. So last year, my nephew John, who is 25 years old, graduated from a film course and wanted to find a job. Since Ava worked in the advertising industry, he asked for a recommendation. Her agency wasn't recruiting camera operators at the time, so she tried to refer him to other agencies where her friends and acquaintances worked. However, a few months later, the hiring manager at Ava's agency noticed John's work and offered him employment with a good pay. When Ava learned that John had received an offer from her agency, she advised him not to join, stating that he shouldn't move for a few months and that her agency wasn't that great, that it was a toxic work culture, and so on. Surprisingly, prior to this discussion, Ava had never complained about the toxicity of her workplace. She had been associated with the agency for years. Her advice made John suspicious that Ava didn't want him working at her agency. Although he didn't say anything, I could tell by his nonchalant face that he didn't believe her logic. After John left, I asked Ava why she didn't want John to join her agency. She said her agency wasn't a good fit for cameramen and cinematographers because the publicity director is a toxic boss. I asked her if it was toxic as she had worked there for so many years and had never complained about toxicity before. She said her reporting is different, that she reports to a creative director who is not toxic, but friends have informed her that the advertising director is a cruel man. The next day, I called John and tried to explain to him the same reason Ava explained to me last night. He said he hadn't made a decision yet and was still analyzing the proposal. He mentioned verifying information online from previous employees and so on. At that point, I left the conversation and kind of moved on. I didn't consult with John again about it, and weeks went by. Probably a couple months later, Ava came home with an angry face. I asked her why, but she ignored me and went to take a shower. I thought maybe she was stressed about some work-related stuff, so I didn't think much of it. After her shower, she went straight to bed without eating dinner. I cuddled her, asking the reason for her bad mood, convincing her to eat dinner, but she refused, saying she was tired and just wanted to sleep. I backed off, giving her space because after a busy shift, sometimes sleep is more important than food or a husband. The next morning, she was normal. She didn't say anything and I ignored it too so as not to make her angry. That night she came in late. I thought it was her usual extended shift or so, but she came in. Oh my God, she was seething. She didn't wait for me to ask her reason. She unleashed her anger on me. Apparently, she was angry because John ignored her advice and joined her agency. She went on to say that no one in my family liked her or respected her opinion. I was stunned by her response. I mean, it's okay if John doesn't take her advice, right? He's an adult and has every right to choose his own employer. Well, Ava has always been a strong woman, and I adore her for her strong character. It is because of her character that she has been able to succeed in a career dominated by male colleagues. But sometimes Ava gets selfish. In the early stages of our dating, I had a hard time connecting with her because she often insisted on her own way and would not back down from her decision. But over time, I realized that she was smart and intuitive. Her decisions and predictions turned out to be accurate more often than not. So I guess now I was used to following her instincts even if sometimes she couldn't back up her point with logic. So when Ava vented her anger at me, I didn't flare up. That would have turned her on even more. When she was done, I calmed her down. I'd assured her that I believed in her judgment with all my soul, but we can't impose that on our families, right? I told her that she tried her best to keep John from jumping into the well of fire. But if he did choose this for himself, so be it. Let him taste it and repent. To satisfy her ego, I told her she would have the last laugh. I certainly don't want my nephew to suffer, but to bear the consequences of his decision. Besides, it wasn't forced labor. He could get out of it whenever he wanted. Ava remained silent as I reassured her. I couldn't tell if I had convinced her, so I decided to let it go. More than 4 months had passed since then, but Ava was behaving strangely. At times, she would treat me coldly. Some days she behaves normally, and some days she is nothing more than a stranger to me. I tried many times to confront her, but she brushes off her behavior under the cover of hectic work and so on. Further, she insisted that I don't think too much about it because I just think too much about her. I asked her if she was still upset about the incident with John, but she said he didn't exist for her. I knew her comments were rude, but I also knew it was temporary. I didn't speak to John since he joined the agency, but I knew he was fine since he hadn't left yet. I was more concerned about Ava's behavior towards me. I focused on my work, went to the gym, and set a goal to lose 12 pounds. On John's birthday, I called him to wish him. He sounded cheerful, but when I asked him about his work, he got quiet and said he wanted to meet me. He said he had gone out that day and wanted to have lunch with me. This caught me off guard because a 25-year-old guy definitely doesn't want to have lunch on his birthday with his uncle unless it's a serious matter. I asked him if everything was okay at work because somehow I trusted Ava and thought John's boss was really toxic. I thought John realized he shouldn't have ignored Ava, so I agreed to meet. I had to pretend to be sick to get some sudden rest, but I was curious to see what John had in store for me. During lunch, he was uncomfortable most of the time. I asked him if anything was bothering him, but he said no. I even asked about his boss and the workload at work, but he said work was going great. His strange behavior made me feel uncomfortable, so I asked him directly if there was anything he wanted to share with me. He was caught off guard and admitted that he had something on his mind. He told me that he had seen Ava being unusually close to her boss, the creative director. They would always have lunch together and take coffee breaks. She would often leave the office early with him, which was the subject of office gossip. He said that Ava, being his aunt, bothers him when people say such foul words to her. Since everyone in the office knows that John is my nephew, they don't gossip about Ava in his presence, but these things spread pretty quickly. I asked him if he was sure about that. He clenched his palms, apologized to me at least 100 times, and said he was sorry to tell me all this. At first, he hesitated to go into details for fear of hurting me. He only revealed the details when I insisted. He added that it could just be a rumor because they too had to accompany their boss during client meetings. So it was possible that Ava was leaving the office to meet clients. My head was heavy and I couldn't process the information. My problem was that John wasn't sure about it. It could just be speculation or unfounded gossip. Besides, I had no proof to confront Ava, which made my situation even more suffocating. I returned home feeling disoriented. I had been alone all evening, except at the dinner table. I ducked my head into my plate and started chewing my food. Ava asked me several times if I was okay, but I just nodded. I couldn't sleep, but I wrapped myself up under the covers, freezing. I don't know what I was thinking when I suddenly asked Ava, "What is the exact reason why you didn't want John to join your agency?" She was stunned. She asked me why I brought it up again. I told her with an honest face that I met John today, and he was as happy with his work as he is with his boss. She rolled her eyes and put the phone away. She took a deep breath and said, "Look, my intention wasn't wrong. I'm not sure how he got along with his boss. Maybe because they both share the same ideology." I asked her what she meant by the same ideology. She hesitantly told me that she thinks John has a conservative mindset and raises an eyebrow when a woman's skirt length is short or the neckline is a few inches lower. As for John's boss, it's almost safe to say he's a chauvinist who looks down on the women on his team. She said John is nosy and likes to dictate to the women in his house, so she wasn't comfortable with him working at her agency. I asked her why she didn't tell me about it. She said it would hurt me and there was no need to go into such details. I didn't say a word after that. In retrospect, I realized that in some ways she was right. I had often heard John tell his sister that she was no longer young enough to wear such fancy clothes and bright lipstick. He was also against his sister's decision to move out of the house and live alone. He once beat a boy to a bruise when he found him talking cozily to his sister in the school cafeteria. So it's a bit risky for me to make any judgments. Although I trust Ava, I just didn't want to be caught off guard and deceived. Anyway, I couldn't completely ignore John's instinct this time around, so I asked him to provide me with some evidence for his claim. He said he didn't want to participate in this saga only to be branded as a marriage breaker by family members. I assured him that I would not accuse him even if his suspicions turned out to be false. Eventually, he agreed to give it a try. He said he would try to get some evidence, but he couldn't promise it. A few days later, Ava came home from work and started throwing tantrums at me. She accused me of using John to spy on her. She said John had made her life at work horrible and she wouldn't stand for it. She threatened John's job if he continued to spy on her. I asked her to tell me the exact reason for her reaction. She counterattacked me by telling me that I shouldn't act naive when I was plotting all this with John's help. I felt terrible about lying to her, but assured her that I had no part in any of this. She told me that John followed her around no matter what she did or where she went, whether it was the cafeteria or the patio for a smoke break. At this point, I was breaking down inside at John's stupidity. I mean, what was he thinking following her everywhere? Even if she was willing, she wouldn't do anything in a public place, right? At that moment, I hoped that John's suspicions would turn out to be false. I reassured Ava and promised her that I would talk to John and bring him to his senses. I was actually thinking about meeting John that weekend and asking him to focus on his career rather than exposing Ava. The next day, I got a call from Ava's father. I was stunned when he told me that I had to pull John's strings because he had molested Ava at her workplace. For a moment, I was at a loss for words, wondering how he knew about the situation. I hesitantly asked him if Ava had said anything to him about it. He said he was near Ava's office that day, so they decided to have lunch together. During lunch, Ava opened her heart to how John had been spying on her. I don't know if it's just me or if Ava actually inflated the situation to unbelievable proportions, but I assured him that I would take care of it. When Ava got home, I told her about her father's phone call. She said that yes, she had discussed her problem with her father as usual. I told her that it was our internal matter and we could work it out. Besides, I had promised the previous last night that I would settle the matter with John. However, she took a defensive stance, saying that it was her father and she had a right to discuss her problems with him. A little backstory on Ava's father. He's a bit of an overprotective father, the kind of father who is overprotective of his daughter. The kind of father who pulls out a gun if anyone looks at his daughter. He leaves no opportunity to brag about how proud he is to be the father of an independent girl. I mean, I know being the father of a girl naturally makes you defensive and proud, but trust me guys, he's too ahead of the curve. Anyway, I called John that very moment and asked him for a meeting for the upcoming week. The rest of the week went smoothly. The following weekend, I went to meet with John to ask him to drop the investigation. But he had something else in store for me. I started by thanking him for being so protective of me, and when I asked him to calm down, he stopped me and said he wanted to show me something. He pulled out his laptop and showed me a clip that sent shivers down my spine. It was a long video. He rewinded to the moment I was looking for. Ava was seen with her boss in an elevator. He was caressing her hands, taking some files. Then he was seen fondling her other body parts. There was not one, but several clips of her boss's hand hugging her body in the elevator and the deserted fire exit locks on the stairs. I didn't have the courage to watch all the clips with my eyes wide open. I told John to give me all those files. I also asked him how he managed to get the security camera footage from the workplace. He said he couldn't name him, but he had friends in the engineering department who were able to hack into security cameras in unmanned areas of the office. When I got home, Ava immediately asked if I had introduced my stupid nephew. I replied, "Yes, I told John not to interfere in your affairs when you were being knocked down by your boss." My voice automatically rose when I said that. She was flustered. She tried to play the victim by claiming that John harbored hatred for her. I yelled back at her, interrupting her drama, and told her I had living proof that her boss was playing with her body. She didn't back down until I showed her the clips. She froze for a moment before reverting back to her narcissistic self, threatening John for invading an employee's personal space and threatening their work security department for leaking the security footage. I couldn't understand her reasoning. She said it was fake and asked me to check the evidence before tarnishing her reputation. I boldly told her that I had all the evidence that she went to hotel rooms with her boss. I said I hired a private investigator and he provided me with all the information. I was bluffing because John gave me detailed information of the hotel where Ava and her boss often stayed for their dirty business. I didn't have any information other than the name of the hotel though. I just bluffed and told her that I knew all the details of her and her boss staying at the hotel. She bought my bluff and was at a loss for words. She sat down and told me that I needed to listen to her before drawing any conclusions. I said I was willing to listen to her. She said, "Well, you know I work in the advertising industry. That's part of the business, right? I need to keep my boss happy. It's nothing personal between us. It's just a job, you know." I felt my guts spilling out of my mouth. How lucky she was to say that it's nothing personal and it's all about work, right? I know I'm going to piss a lot of you off by saying this. If that's the case, then her profession is nothing but someone who sells her body for money. I can't believe that she exhibited this whole idea of female empowerment, that she thrived in a man's world with her head held high. No, not with her head held high, but with her knee bent. I told her I wasn't buying her logic, which was pure deception. I made it clear that cheating was the end of it for me and I would file for divorce. Having said that, I locked myself in the room, packed some things, and left the house. As I left, I told her that she should leave my house as soon as possible, and next we would meet in court. She said nothing. I stayed the night in the hotel and flew to Florida the next day. I'll be honest, I wanted to get away from my miserable life. That same night, I called my lawyer friend and explained the situation. He took all the details from me and said he would mail the divorce papers in a week to her residential address, her parents' house. So I was still in Florida when my attorney sent Ava the divorce document to her parents' house. A few hours after I received confirmation from my attorney that the paper had been sent, I received a call from Ava's father. He immediately started yelling at me, accusing me and my nephew of chauvinism and selfishness. He said I was divorcing Ava because John and I couldn't stand her successful career. I was puzzled by his accusations. After he finished accusing me, I asked him if he really knew the exact reason because it definitely wasn't what he thought. I told him that I didn't know that Ava scared him, but I had all the proof of my claims, which I shared with him the very moment we were on the phone. I asked him to check his phone. He simply remained silent. The first part of the silence was when he was checking the videos I sent him, and the next part was silence due to embarrassment. I told him that I was sorry that he had to watch such clips of his daughter, but I had no choice but to share them. I am not a saint. I can't just keep quiet and take all the blame when I'm the last person to be blamed for it. I'm a damn victim. That's it on his part. I came back about a month later. By then, Ava was out of the house. However, she contested the divorce, demanding alimony and a share of the house. Instead, my attorney demanded payment from her to compensate for the mental trauma I had to endure because of her. He also assured me that our marriage was short-lived and she made no contribution when I bought the house, so she could not claim any share in the house. The case is still pending, but I think I'm a little further along than where I was a couple months ago when all this came to light. I'm not meeting with anyone. I don't plan on doing that anytime soon either. I'm just focused on getting rid of the binge drinking I acquired during the depression phase in Florida. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Until next time, I'll see you again. Take care.